Penumbra / the Season of Opulence is the third content drop for the Destiny 2's first annual pass. This content drop has very high highs and some lows, but overall it's an extremely pleasant experience. In this video, I will go over everything, including all the paid and free content that you will receive through the Season of Opulence. So, without further ado, this is my review of the Season of Opulence. The core gameplay loop of this season revolves around the Menagerie. The Menagerie is a pseudo-raid-like environment where you and 5 other match-made players will have to complete encounters that are randomized to fill up a bar. There is no way to fail normal Menagerie, which probably is a relief for a bunch of players. Instead, you will just get less progress on the bar if you do not do as well in an encounter. The encounters are randomized and all very unique and interesting, letting you do a bunch of tasks that are not mindless. I'm looking at you, Reckoning. After filling up this bar on top with encounter completions, you will be faced with the boss. There is a rotation on all of the bosses. It will either be this Minotaur with a bunch of walls, this Ogre, which you have to throw balls at, or this Hydra, which is just really weak. After defeating the boss in the Menagerie, you will be granted this loot chest. Heroic Menagerie is about the same, except it is not match-made, and also there are set patterns in encounters and set modifiers on bosses. Also, the light of the enemy in Heroic Menagerie will be significantly higher, and the final boss will have red sword enemies, making it very difficult, but also very rewarding once overcome. I acquired the Shadow title, which required me to flawless all of the Heroic Menagerie bosses. It was challenging, to say the least, but hey, it's pretty satisfying. Also, this Ogre, fuck this Ogre. Now that we talked about how the Menagerie plays, let's talk about the loot in the Menagerie. In order to acquire loot at the end of the Menagerie, you will have to slot ruins into your Chalice of Opulence. At the start, you will only be able to slot a few different color ruins, and you won't get as many rewards at the end. But slowly, as you upgrade your Chalice of Opulence with Imperials either gained from completing triumphs, or opening these chests, or just doing activities and randomly getting them, you will get a Masterwork Chalice of Opulence, and this is where the fun begins. After you unlock all 3 Chalice slots of 3 different ruins, and also unlock all color of the ruins, then you will be able to curate whatever weapon you get at the end of the Menagerie. This is a significant step forward for how loot works in Destiny, as minus quests, it has never been curated, and to this degree. There was the Forges, which allowed curated weapons to a certain extent, only the Black Armory weapons, but this allows curated weapons from abundance of activities. For example, you want a Twilight Oath, slot in the 3 purple, you get a Twilight Oath. You want Waking Vigil? Then for sure, slot in the 3 greens, then you get a Waking Vigil. This is super helpful and just makes farming for specific gear much easier. However, the elements of Destiny, of farming and RNG are not removed completely, as there are different rolls you can get on the weapon. But this makes farming much more streamlined, and you have a goal to farm for X weapon with X roll. I cannot stress how big this is for Destiny, as there has never been such curations for your loot drops. This is a genuine step forward from what Destiny 1 was. The difference between the loot in Heroic Menagerie and normal Menagerie is that the first drop of the week for Heroic Menagerie will be a guaranteed Masterwork. And also, you get chances of getting the swords for each of the classes after defeating the final boss in Heroic Menagerie. Overall, the Menagerie is an excellent core activity of the season. Going forward, I will want to see other core activities to the same level, if not greater than the Menagerie. The Tribute Hall is pretty cool. If you enter the Tribute Hall, the first thing you'll see is a statue of Callus, which will present you with 4 different bounties each day, which each would give you a 1% discount on the tributes that you can buy. Below him, you will see a stock. You cannot see it on my screen because I have already bought all of it. These tributes consist of all 4 enemy races in Destiny, and once you place down the tributes, you will have an interactable version of them spawn. These enemies cannot kill you. They're just there to either look at or do damage testing. There's also the respective weapons for each of the enemy races at the end of the tributes. The tributes that can be purchased include ones that can be purchased with legendary shards and bright dust. I have no doubt that these tributes are for the purpose of draining players' resources right before Shadowkeep launches, which I don't like, but here, take my stuff. Again, this is not required, as you only maybe need 35 tributes to actually get the bad juju, which is probably the main purpose. Some people are even playing the tribute hall, but don't worry, only some of the tributes cost resources. There's a lot of tributes out there that require you to play activities wearing Leviathan/Menagerie gear. Wearing this gear will give you points, which then will eventually equal to you getting a tribute. These tributes are golden statues of really cool characters. For example, there are ones for each raid. There are cool Zavala, Ikora, Shaq statues if you do play their activities. However, I feel like there is a missing statue of someone we love very dearly. I can't quite think of it. By collecting 18 statues, you will receive the Bad Juju quest. By collecting 45 statues, you will receive the Bad Juju Catalyst. By collecting 50 statues, you will receive an emote, which is pretty cool. But again, the emote and the catalysts are kind of optional, so you don't have to do them all. The tribute hall is just kind of there. It doesn't add much to gameplay, but it's a cool display of things that you've accomplished. It's like a more visible version of an achievement. The Crown of Sorrows is the raid that comes in the Season of Opulence, and to be honest, I do not think that the Crown of Sorrows is that good of a raid. But let me just say that this is one of the only raids that all the members have to be quite engaged. Everyone has a role, and they need to do their role correctly, or else the entire team falls apart. However, this raid is very small. The size of the raid layers, in fact. And maybe even smaller than some of the raid layers. This is a strike. Also, there's often one constant gimmicks that are introduced in the beginning of raids and then constantly used throughout the raid, but in a different interesting way. In this, it's the curse effect. It's the curse/blessing effect. And it's just used way too much. It's all you do throughout the entire raid. There's not that much diversity. Is the raid pseudo-challenging first week? Yeah, it's pretty challenging and it's pretty fun. And is the gear pretty good? Yeah, the gear is pretty good, minus the weapons. The weapons are kind of garbage. Overall, I feel like this raid is just not super good. It's very mediocre. First impressions were really good. However, the more I played it, and eventually as I did Crown of easily, this raid just felt like a joke. It felt like a really easy raid, and it felt like a rather boring raid. Destiny raids have always been a highlight in the game, and in this, there's good gameplay aspects. It's just not very interesting as an overall package compared to all the other raids that we've been introduced to. The loot in the Season of Opulence is very okay. There are some standout guns, such as the Awstringer and the Beloved for PvP. However, most of the guns from the Menagerie are just alright. In the raid, there are some weapons, such as the Goleron's right-hand auto rifle that is above average, but it's still an auto rifle, so it's not super good. The raid shotgun, the Emperor's Courtesy, actually isn't that bad. I've been using it frequently, and I find it quite enjoyable. My role is quick draw surrounded, so hey, if you want to farm this gun, it's a pretty good gun in PvP. But one of the main aspects of Season of Opulence is the introduction of the Menagerie, and in that, farming all weapons from previous seasons, which is what people are doing often. Such as, for example, Waking Vigil, Twilight Oath. These are weapons that used to be hard to farm and are really good, but now have an easier way of being farmed, so people are farming them, which I find it to be pretty good. Along with these legendary weapons, some new legendary perks have been added, although not nearly as much as Black Armory or the Season of the Drifter. One notable perk includes no distractions on sniper rifles, which reduces flinch on the sniper rifles. It's useful and definitely noticeable, but currently flinch on sniper rifles isn't even that hard, especially on PC. I feel like sniper rifles are way too easy to use right now, which is a different discussion, but yeah, that's bottom line. It's a fine perk. If you want to get less flinch, then use it. There are also pinnacle weapons that came with this season. The Vanguard pinnacle weapon, the Wendigo, is a grenade launcher. Whenever you collect orbs, it gets a damage boost to the next grenade. This grenade launcher does extreme damage, but the problem is that spike grenade launchers just kind of are better than it in long-term DPS. An interesting thing to note is that the Wendigo has blinding grenades, and it's a heavy grenade launcher, making it a unique heavy grenade launcher. The Crucible pinnacle weapon is the Revoker. It is a sniper rifle that whenever you miss a shot in a few seconds, the shot will be returned. Some people say that this rewards missing, but I would disagree. I think it rewards being aggressive. So you can take those shots and not risk losing any ammo. You can try quickscoping, and even if you miss, you won't lose any ammo. Also, the Revoker has a short zoom combat sight on it, making it a really, really good sniper rifle to use in Crucible. The Gambit pinnacle weapon, the Hush bow, is a bow that whenever you hip fire headshot for the next 7 seconds, you'll get an extreme draw speed boost, i.e. like Hanzo Storm Arrow draw speed boost. I like this weapon. It feels fun to use, and I like bows. Is it meta? No. Is it relevant? No. Might it be meta? Probably not. But I enjoy using this bow, and it's fun, so that's why I use it. The gear this season also looks pretty cool. The Menagerie gear mostly consists of Destiny 1 armor that has been Callus-ified. Callus basically took a bunch of gear from our vaults after the Red Legion attacked, and then just Callus-ified them with gold and stuff. How nice of you, Callus. There is also the really cool raid gear, which is probably my second favorite Destiny raid armor set of all time. There is also a lengthy Iron Banner quest this season, which is lengthy and grindy and monotonous and whatever. It's really boring. No one really liked it. The Solstice of Heroes armor is also really cool. However, we'll talk about Solstice of Heroes as we get to Solstice of Heroes. The new exotics that came with the Season of Opulence include 4 exotic weapons and 3 exotic armor pieces. The exotic weapons include 2 returning ones, the Truth and the Bad Juju. The Truth, it's a lengthy, long, grindy quest. It's pretty boring, pretty monotonous, whatever, your classic Destiny quest. A formula that's honestly at this point getting pretty lame, but I don't want to touch on that too much. And then there's the Bad Juju, which you obtain by completing a mission. This mission being the Other Side mission, which people thought was going to be like a dungeon, but at last, no, it wasn't a dungeon. It was a really, just pretty fun, but also pretty easy little adventure story missions, quest-ish thing. It's not challenging. There's no respawn-restricted areas, but it's pretty simple. You beat the level, and then you get the Bad Juju. During this level, you go through some pretty cool areas, such as, well, areas in the Leviathan that have now been taken-fied. So that's pretty cool. It's nowhere as cool as 0 Hour, but hey, you can't expect a 0 Hour literally every expansion. So, oh well. Other than that, there are 2 new exotic weapons, one of them being the Lumina exotic hand cannon, which you obtain through another long, lengthy quest, blah blah blah. But at least this one has some kind of meaning. Well, there is meaning to the Truth quest. You're gonna watch like a bite video on that, but no one knows it that much. But this quest, however, this is more interesting. It's kind of like a conclusion of the story we've been following for a while. Dredgen Yor versus Shimalfur, all that stuff. Dredgen Yor used to have Thorn, and then he died, and then now his Thorn turned into a Rose. And so we take the Rose hand cannon and purify it into the Lumina, a weapon of light. Kind of, you know, full circling the gun from normal to dark, from normal to light. Yeah. The Lumina, as an actual gun, is very mediocre. The perk is whenever you get a kill, there's an orb that the dead enemy will drop. You pick the orb up, and then you get 1 noble round, which is a healing round that you can shoot at any allies to heal them, as well as give them a damage buff. When you shoot them with this round, you also receive a damage buff. The damage buff is okay, the healing's okay, the weapon is niche, the gun kind of just feels a bit below average hand cannon-wise, so it's a pretty mediocre gun. The other weapon is the Taraba, which is an exotic submachine gun from the raid Crown of Sorrows. It's RNG drop at the end, just like the Anarchy, just like 1,000 Voices. The perk of the gun is you shoot stuff or take damage, and then you fill up a meter. Once the meter is filled, the gun will shoot extremely fast for a temporary amount of time and do extreme amounts of damage. Although this gun can do an extreme amount of damage, The gun isn't very good for the reasons of, if you stow away the weapon, the charge meter to going sicko mode disappears. If you pop your super, the charge meter disappears. If you pick anything up, the charge meter disappears, which is bad. Makes this gun pretty bad, especially considering the last season's Crucible Pinnacle weapon, the Recluse, is so incredibly good. And it's also a legendary that's in the same slot that can clear adds much better than this exotic weapon. So overall, Teraba, it's very, once again, niche, and it's a primary that does DPS, which is a bit weird because that's not what the primaries are supposed to do. They're supposed to clear adds. So use the Recluse. The 3 exotic armor pieces are returning Destiny 1 armor pieces for each class. For the Hunter, it's the Kefri Sting, except completely reworked. Instead of shifting to go invisible and then stabbing someone in the back to one-shot them, Kefri Sting now will deploy your smoke grenade on Night Stalker whenever you melee. And preceding that, you will also get a few seconds of True Sight, which is wall hacks. People don't think this is that good, which I don't blame them, but I do like using it in a close rushing build, which isn't what you're seeing in this video, but whatever. Here's a clip of how it works. It's niche. Yep. It's just niche. Does it do good? Kind of. If you're good at the game, you can probably do well with it. On the Warlock side, there's the Astral Sight Verse, which improves your blink. Makes your blink distance faster, makes your blink cooldown faster, makes the radar come on faster, make your weapon draw speed faster. It makes the blink faster for Warlock, which can, if you really like blink, you can do some really nasty shotgun blink builds with this, and it's super annoying for anyone that's playing against it. That is, if you don't confuse yourself with blinking, that is. Finally, for the Titans, you have the Paragon Greaves, which is a leggings that makes it so your shoulder charge does extreme, and mark my words, I mean extreme amounts of damage. See, here is an example. Here is the damage without Paragon Greaves. Pretty meh. And here is it with Paragon Greaves. Do you see that difference? Paragon Greaves boosts your shoulder charge damage to an insane amount, and it's really good. Finally, at the end of the loot section, I would like to talk about the Eververse. There's the new Best of your 1 engram, which doesn't include any of the new gear. All the new gear have to either be purchased directly with silver or bright dust, which I don't see it as a bad thing. I see that you can directly purchase something that you want, and if you don't want something, you don't have to have the RNG chance of loot box getting it. And I believe that if they will be removing bright engrams coming Shadowkeep, that'll be fine. Because the loot box is slowly being banned, I feel like that these purchasable cosmetic options are pretty good, and if you grind a good amount, you could get the cosmetics you want just by using bright dust. It's not that hard. I haven't had to pay any money to get all the cosmetics I want. I feel like that this is cool. This is a fine business model. I'm fine with just buying directly what I want, and I actually like it much more than the RNG system we used to have. So in conclusion, loot in the Season of Opulence, there are a lot of changes, but I enjoy them. And even though maybe some of the loot that come this season aren't super impactful in PvE, they are pretty impactful in PvP. And maybe the weapons in general aren't that meta changing as the ones in the previous seasons, especially Black Armory. Again, but it is pretty hard to live to the standard of Black Armory meta-ness of the weapons, just because Black Armory introduced so many weapons that were so meta. The lore in the Season of Opulence is mainly 2 stories. One story that is really cool, and one story that's a weird idea, and also basically fanfiction. So, let's go over my favorite piece of lore between these 2 pieces, which is the Crown of Sorrows. Yeah, the raid might not be that good, but I enjoyed the lore. The Crown of Sorrows lore goes something like this. The Bathers, genetically engineered creatures by Callus. They were created to serve one purpose, and that was bathe. Until one day Savathun came over, dropped this crown, and went like, yo, look at this. This is so powerful. You can totally control the hive now, Callus. Just put this on your head. Callus thought that he could outsmart Savathun. Like, I'm not going to put this on my head. This is just going to corrupt me. So I'm going to create something with no free will, and no mind to think to put this on its head, and he will control the hive for me. So then, Goron, the Sorrow Bearer, the creature created, genetically engineered to bear the Crown of Sorrows, was created by Callus, only for the crown to taint his memories and his mind. Even a creature so unthinking with no mind to think could think. You know, this is a pretty original story. I honestly have not seen this story anywhere else in media. Like, never. So basically, Goron is a bad boy, and Callus could not control him anymore, so he locked him in his basement so that one day us Guardians can come over and destroy him, so the Crown of Sorrows can belong to Callus again, so Callus can conduct whatever experiment that he wants with the Crown of Sorrows. The second piece of lore is the Chronicon, which is Callus's prediction of what will happen in the future. This is fanfiction. It basically goes something like this. We really love Callus. Callus really loves us. He wants to be the last being to ever survive. So we go off and kill every single one that opposes Callus until finally, as the universe ends, Callus snaps our fucking neck and then achieves his goal of being the last living creature in the universe. Hooray. Except this is complete fanfiction and really doesn't serve much, as it is an unreliable narrator and doesn't provide much information to the world other than Callus's weird-ass fantasies. The lore in the season of Opulence is in abundance, but it's tight. It's alright. Also, there's no cutscenes. I would say that season of Opulence lore is not as good as Joker's Wild lore. Destiny 2's 2019 Solstice of Heroes event is not as good as last year's in some ways, but better than last year's in other ways. Is the armor as equally as grindy as last year's, if not more? Yes. Do you need to get all 3 armor sets or any of the armor sets really? You don't have to, but if you really want to grind, you can. Now, the activity in the Solstice of Heroes this year is the European Aerial Zone. It's a newly invented activity with an entirely new zone created just for this event. However, it's the only thing that you really do repeatedly, and it's the only thing that is new in this event. This event is not as good as last year's, I would say, because last year's there were 6 different missions, and they were more diverse than just doing the same thing over and over again like we did this year in the European Aerial Zone. And also, I've always seen that, well, at least I thought that Solstice of Heroes is a bit of a reflection on what happened in the previous year. So that's why last year we had all the modified missions from Vanilla D2 campaign, and we can revisit it, and I thought that was really cool. This year, I would have liked revisiting what we've done in Forsaken with a little bit of a twist. Kind of like, you know, Solstice Heroes 2018. Other than that, the armor, though, for Solstice of Heroes 2019 is much cooler, and I think, in my opinion, the glows are much more obtainable. As last year's, there was, you need to pay money, or you need to rely on RNG. There wasn't a lot of leeway there. But this, you just need to get some bright dust, and then you can pay 5,000 bright dust, which seems like a lot, but for the amount of armor glows you get, isn't actually a lot for each set of armor glow for every single character. And I think that's a pretty good deal. Personally, this year's Solstice of Heroes is a grind fest. If you like grinding, you like this year's Solstice of Heroes. If you didn't like grinding, then I guess you didn't like this. But again, why are you playing Destiny if you don't like grinding? Along with the Solstice of Heroes, I'm also just going to tag along Moments of Triumph, because that's just very short. Moments of Triumph used to be something that was pretty cool. There was some activities associated with it. This year it was just a bit of a triumph. It's just a checklist for all the things that you can do during this year, and if you check all of it, then you get the title of playing for this year. Would have liked, honestly, some more ghost shells, sparrows, or, I don't know, armor ornaments, weapons to commemorate this moment of triumph, but whatever. It's just a normal moment of triumph. Season of Opulence, the 3rd season in the Destiny 2 Annual Pass 2019, is the best of all 3 seasons in the Annual Pass. I know I was quite critical during this review, but honestly, a lot of the criticism I gave, they are all overshadowed by just how well done the core mechanics of this season is compared to all the previous 2 seasons. This season is a very fun experience, and it is also a bit of a tail end to the Forsaken era as we slowly approach Shadowkeep in about a week or 2. Shadowkeep, a lot of things are going to change. it's not going to be the same as all these things that have came before, which I'm skeptical, but I'm also optimistic. I hope it all goes out well, and a lot of things I'm seeing are looking pretty good. But I'll just have to wait and see how Shadowkeep really turns out. So yeah, this is my thoughts on Season of Opulence. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.